Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Property Management 101, and today I'll be discussing best practices for creating your on-call directions. If you've not already done so, please watch my disclosure video as well as my why I do this video. And if you find this video helpful and learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. In today's video, I'll also be sharing with you two bonus suggestions of things I used to do when I created my on-call directions for any assets that I was involved in. This video will apply for anyone in the property management industry, regardless of the type of asset or demographic type. When I refer to on-call directions, what I'm really meaning or referring to is the directions you provide to your residents that will allow them to get a hold of someone after hours in a situation that requires someone from the property management team to address prior to the next day and time that your office is normally open. Due to the potential sensitivity with this, I would recommend not taking this step lightly, but provide good details of these steps and directions. I would always recommend and encourage your residents, if they do have an emergency, to contact the appropriate emergency services rather than the property management company first. And I would recommend to include this with your move-in packet as well. And if you've not already done so, please watch my video titled Move-In Packet, and I would highly suggest watching that video as well, and I'll include that link to that video in the video description. Number one best practice to consider when putting together your on-call directions: really outline the on-call use. So what I mean by this is really ensure that you're explaining within your directions what something would constitute as a after hours situation that needs to be addressed, and when something can wait to the next day when your office is open. For example, if a resident's AC is out but it's 50 degrees outside, that may not warrant, for most markets and most units and management companies, an after hours request where that staff member would have to go out there and fix it. But keep in mind, if it is 90 degrees outside, that may be something that not only that as a best practice you need to address, but it could be something that, due to tenant landlord laws in the state, you have to address. So I'd really make sure on both sides you provide some examples of what would constitute an after hours call and what would not. If you don't lay this out, then your staff may be receiving a lot of calls at night that they can avoid by just outlining more directions of what would apply, what would not apply. So this is some helpful things I'd really consider as you're putting together your directions. Number two best practice to consider when putting together your on-call directions: label and list who's responsible for what. So for example, if there's certain things a resident's responsible for compared to what the property management company will cover and address. Two examples of the subjects that may apply to this one would be lockout, who's responsible for that, and utilities, who would be responsible for that. If that would be something that an after hours call would be needed for a utility if it's out, or if it's something you want the residents to contact the utility company directly. And the last best practice to consider when putting together your on-call directions: include all fees and steps. Make sure you include any and all fees that may be associated with any after hours items that is being addressed by the staff. Now, this could be included for lockouts. For example, for a resident that is locked out after hours, if you provide this as a service as part of your after hours calls, then it is something that maybe you want to include. The resident must have an ID, or maybe they have to provide certain information. Maybe there's a fee associated with this, where if your staff member has to go out, there's a certain cost. These are things I would really make sure that you're disclosing on the front end and including your move-in pack or any other type of area that you include your after hours directions. Now for your two bonus tips for today. These are things I've personally incorporated as part of my on-call directions to residents, and they've worked out great, and I'm confident if you incorporate them as well, you'll find the same results. The first one, I would always recommend the residents to save the after hours directions and call information within their cell phones. Oftentimes they may need to access this information, but they don't have it. And you don't want a resident to need this information but not have easy access to it. So I'd always recommend they save it to their cell phones. And the second bonus tip that I could offer, things that I used to do, is I would actually, for properties that provided a fridge, I would provide a magnet that looked like a home within every one of their homes before they moved in. So when they moved in, they saw, and we would reference this. Part of the onboarding process when they were moving in and receiving their keys is that we mentioned this magnet on the fridge that outlines, hey, this is how to get a hold of someone after hours. If it's needed, please refer to the move-in packet for what those things could be. So this was very helpful. Residents really appreciated this. And I was also surprised how little we had to replace these. Most residents would just leave it when they moved out, since it was on the fridge when they moved in. So so it wasn't a huge expense either. If you do have any questions about this video or any of my videos, feel free to comment below and I'll be happy to address them for you. And I hope you found this video helpful and learned something new. If so, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Happy leasing!